Welcome to the future of money. Come with us on this journey into the world of Bitcoin, blockchain and crypto projects. You're going to meet the trailblazers. These people have changed my life and they may very well do the same for you. Here we are with
Jake Smith, Coinspice.io, formerly of Bitmain, Bitcoin.com, big Bitcoin Cash proponent.
Okay, excellent. We've had another hard fork within your community.
Yeah, the recent Bitcoin SV split.
Yep. So your version of Bitcoin now is Bitcoin ABC, is that correct?
Well, it's called Bitcoin Cash, BCH.
So where's some people are calling it ABC?
Originally, some of the exchanges, to avoid confusion, they labeled the two different sides BCH ABC for the ABC development team and BCH SV for the Satoshi Vision development team.
Okay. So what went down?
Originally, or with the recent one?
Yeah, the recent one.
Okay, there was a faction within the Bitcoin Cash community that disagreed with some of the things the ABC development team was doing.
So who were the main players? We've got Craig Wright, Calvinier on one side, is that right?
Yep.
And you're on the other team, is that right?
Sure, if you want to call it a team. I'm on the peer-to-peer cash team, actually.
Okay, yep.
I like what works well as money. That's permissionless, decentralized, borderless. And to me, that's still Bitcoin Cash.
So sort of the main players that people might know on your...
Amory Sachet is the lead developer of the ABC.
Great, fantastic guy. I've had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times, really rate him. Yeah.
Roger Ver, Jihan Wu are some of the more prominent guys, although I think their influence in the community is overstated, actually.
Really?
Yeah. They're very good at getting publicity, but neither of those two are very involved in decision making amongst developers.
Sure. And where do you fit in the big picture?
I'm just a peer-to-peer cash maximalist. I've been in Bitcoin for 7 years now, almost 7 years.
Yeah.
And always loved Bitcoin, still think it's great. Unfortunately, I think BTC stopped working as well as it used to.
Okay. So go on then, pitch it to me. Why is it better?
Yeah, sure. So if you read the Bitcoin white paper, it introduces Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It talks about a lot of the flaws with previous attempts to create digital cash. A lot of them relied on centralized entities, which were eventually shut down by governments. So Bitcoin Cash, I think, is the continuation of the ideas laid out in the white paper.
Okay.
BTC, what is known as Bitcoin, did a great job for nearly 10 years. But the developers stubbornly refused to increase this 1 megabyte block size limit. And in late 2017, that was height of the bull market. So many people were getting interested in cryptocurrency. That causes massive congestion on the BTC network. We saw fees go to $55 at the peak. Transactions would take up to 2 weeks to confirm. At that point, it's both faster and cheaper to put cash in an envelope and send it to the postal service than it was to make a Bitcoin transaction. To me, that means it's not useful as electronic cash anymore.
So how many developers, if we go back to 2017, we had one Bitcoin. How many developers were working on Bitcoin at that point, and how many within that community then went, no, we want bigger blocks and split or hard forked? Well, can you give us some numbers around that?
Dozens, even long before the split in 2017. You had Gavin Andreessen, Jeff Garzik, Mike Hearn, who were all pretty much the main developers of the BTC project from very early days, who were saying we need to increase this 1 megabyte limit before it's bumped up against. You can find blog posts from those three guys, Mike Hearn, Gavin Andreessen, Jeff Garzik, from 2015, explaining exactly what would happen when that limit was reached. In 2017, that limit was reached, and everything they said came true.
Right.
So this wasn't out of left field, it wasn't unexpected. It was warned against. Now, those three guys were, I think, kind of ostracized and pushed away by some of the more hardcore Bitcoin Core developers. Bitcoin Core here referring to the development team, not the currency. And then you've also had other software implementations, Bitcoin Classic, Bitcoin XT, Bitcoin Unlimited, with their own developers.
I think there's about 80 Bitcoin.
There's so many. Well, these were software implementations for Bitcoin. These weren't forks of Bitcoin.
Okay. There's about 80 forks on Bitcoin.
The idea of these guys and their software implementations was to try to change that feature or increase the 1 megabyte limit through Bitcoin's consensus mechanism, proof of work. By introducing it, getting a majority of miners to run it. Each of those three attempts failed for different reasons, I think.
Okay, we've probably lost a lot of the audience with the last comment. In more basic terms, could you rephrase that?
Okay, so for years and years, since I'd say this debate goes back to 2010, people were talking about the problems that would be caused by this limit. Over the years, people tried to increase the limit through one way or another, and each attempt at doing so was successfully defeated. And eventually, in August 2017, a group of people said, you know what, fuck it, we're just going to create our own version of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We're
So,
going to
in
fork
very
away.
basic terms, the thinking was that it could never really be used as peer-to-peer cash if the block size was X.
How can it be? With a 1 megabyte limit, you're
Yeah.
looking at
So you
a
could-
limit of 3 transactions per second.
You were never going to buy a coffee or a beer with it.
PayPal does in excess of 100 transactions per second. So if we can't even compete with PayPal, how are we going to compete with Visa and MasterCard who do 2,000 transactions per second?
Yeah. Okay. So, thoughts around Bitcoin.com?
Well, I used to work for them.
Yeah. So, what? I mean, did you think maybe changing the name to something else?
No, why not?
You're absolutely, for you guys, that is
I mean,
Bitcoin.
Rod Revere bought the domain name. He's free to do with it as he likes. And I actually, so Bitcoin Cash people catch a lot of flack for saying Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin. I think maybe that's the wrong thing to say, because how do you decide what is the real Bitcoin?
Exactly my point.
I think it's much more fair to say Bitcoin Cash is the version of Bitcoin that embodies the ideas in the Bitcoin white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto the most closely,
Yeah. In your opinion.
in my opinion, but and the opinion of many others.
Yeah, sure. I mean, how big is the community and where you're at right now and what's coming next?
Community's huge. Every day I see new projects popping up.
Yeah.
This week there was one called LazyFox.io. It's like a Amazon Turk competitor. We have a vibrant token ecosystem happening on Bitcoin Cash. We have a few different protocols: Wormhole, SLP tokens.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, the latest fork, I mean, the
The SV fork.
the SV fork. Yeah. Tell us your thoughts around that.
So within the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem, there were 2 different factions. To be honest, even now, I still don't quite understand what the whole dispute was about. I think a lot of the arguments coming from the Bitcoin SV camp were tenuous at best.
Okay, elaborate.
Yeah, sure. With the original BCH fork in August 2017, there was a clear reason to, because BTC stopped functioning as well as peer-to-peer electronic cash.
Yeah.
There's an economic reason to do so.
Yeah.
With the Bitcoin SV fork, it seemed to be more a battle of egos.
Okay, and those, so I know Amory had his issues with the direction Craig Wright wanted to go. Was that sort of the major, was it those guys or?
Well, so Bitcoin Cash, ever since the fork, has had a development process in place where all these different protocol implementations have meetings and they agree on which features will be included at the next hard fork, which occurs every 6 months. By hard fork, I mean network upgrade, not coin split.
You mean the best website in the overall
Hardforking.com,
right?
okay.
That's correct, thank you. Yeah, you heard it there first.
So my understanding is that Enchain, the company Craig Wright is affiliated with,
Craig, for those of you who don't know, has stated that he is in fact Satoshi.
he has stated that. So they were taking part in these developer meetings. They were agreeing to the features to be included in the next network upgrade. And suddenly, like a month and a half before the November 2018 upgrade, they suddenly decided they changed their minds.
Right.
And they said, actually, we're going to create our own protocol. Well, they didn't say that exactly. They said, we're going to create our own software,
Yeah.
and we are going to change the rules of Bitcoin Cash through simple majority hash rate. They amassed a lot of hash rate. They bought some, they rented some. They thought that they did have the majority hash rate. What they failed to account for,
Yeah, this was like mid-November last year, right?
November is when the fork happened, but all the drama happened like maybe 2 months leading up to this.
But the hash war
hash war.
also happened to coincide, I think it was like the 16th of November, also coincided with a massive drop from 6,500 down to 3,000 level. Do you think that had anything to do?
It's likely.
You do?
I think it's really hard to ascribe correlation
Yeah.
in the crypto market, but that is one possible explanation. It could be a likely one as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, Craig, I've heard him say that he feels that, you know, the SV version is the original Bitcoin. They've stripped away everything. They go back to, you know, the core protocol. I think he feels that what you guys are doing is stepping outside of a legal framework. I mean, really, it seems to me that they're positioning SV as the institutional Bitcoin.
Yes, one thing they say a lot is that Bitcoin must be government friendly. So
correct,
that's kind of their.
So what are your thoughts
their
there? Do you think that seems to me like a major reason for the fork?
Yes, and that's one of the major reasons why
Is this just marketing hype from these guys, in your opinion, or do you think they've got a point here?
I think a lot of it is just marketing speak. For example, the Satoshi's Vision thing, or returning to Bitcoin version 0.1.
Yeah.
There are a lot of features that were introduced between 0.1 and now that they've retained.
Correct.
So that's
yeah.
not
so that
not
falls
totally,
over a little bit with
it's
that
not
argument.
true to say that they have reverted to the original Bitcoin.
Sure. Yeah. Which would be ridiculous
the
because then you'd
government-
be leaving bugs and so forth
Yeah,
in
sure.
there. But, yeah.
And then the government-friendly thing, I think that's one of the reasons why I can't really support Bitcoin SV. I think Bitcoin exists sort of outside of this framework of what does the government say.
Yep.
That's not to say it's meant for criminals or whatever. The point is that it's agnostic to whatever someone wants to use it for. What if a government comes in, or better question, which government do you listen to? What if the government of Burma says, oh, Bitcoin is now illegal? Do they shut it down? Because a government said so? They're government friendly.
Could we have a scenario in the future where, you know, these three versions of Bitcoin all play their own role in the bigger picture?
They are all coexisting. They all have their own communities and applications. So I think we already have
seems he's made some worrying statements about really trying to trip up Bitcoin Core later this year. I've also noticed that, you know, some figures in the Bitcoin Core space have actually moved over to SV. It's the community is. How would you describe it? Would you say it's these hard forks have been healthy? Are we just finding our feet in the big picture?
I actually think the hard forks are healthy.
Yep.
Both Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV. People really so fundamentally disagree with one another.
Yep.
Why shouldn't they be able to fork away and try to realize their vision on their own terms?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
In fact, to say that they could not would be tyrannical and I think against the spirit of Bitcoin.
Correct.
It is permissionless after all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just often hard to educate people on, you know, how something that's decentralized, or, you know, how these hard forks happen.
It is messy, and I think it's a tough pill to
yeah.
swallow for most
Yeah.
people when they look in from the outside and they see, oh, but all these hard forks and all these like bizarre
That's what we're trying to do now is
and all these bizarre characters like
yeah. So speaking of bizarre characters, who are some of your favourite people in the space overall?
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of Bitcoin OGs, as I call them.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have a lot of respect for Roger Ver. He catches so much hate, but he's been totally consistent in his message
Yep.
since 2010 or 2011, whenever he became involved.
Yeah.
Roger Ver really, really wants economic freedom for the world.
Yeah.
And I don't think that core message has changed at all.
No, and I absolutely respect the guy for that. I really do. I think he gets a tough time from so many people because he's so outspoken. He makes himself an easy target sometimes.
That's okay.
With, you know, some of the comments and the you know, over the top emotion, but that's great. I don't. Have
Well,
an
he
issue with
is a character.
Yeah, big time. So there's a bit of a cull going on. A lot of these quite clearly scammy projects are on the way out. Where do you think we're going to be in a year's time? Who's going to be left?
I think the coal
Who are the top five?
I think the coal is great. One thing I love about the bear market is it kind of shakes out the people who are in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
No, it keeps them, and it shakes out the people who are in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
The speculators, the people chasing easy money.
So if you had to say there's going to be who are the top 5 projects next year?
In a year, I don't think BTC will have gone anywhere. I'm not so certain that it will always be able to retain its number one position in market cap.
Disagree.
I think Ethereum, very, very strong community, strong project.
Yeah.
Bitcoin Cash, of course.
Yeah.
Dash, also very interesting. One of the few cryptocurrencies also trying to be peer-to-peer cash.
Only place I've actually seen Dash heavily advertised was a strip club in Bangkok.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not a Dash guy, by the way. I'm just saying which projects.
Okay, well, that's cool. You got one more.
Nor am I an Ethereum guy
got one
or a
more.
BTC guy.
You're a strip club guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Who isn't? One more, I don't know.
You haven't mentioned SV. You don't think that'll be around?
You know what else I like is Monero.
Yeah.
Now, I don't necessarily think a coin like Monero will ever see mainstream adoption, but I think for the people who it does appeal to and the use cases it appeals to,
Yeah.
it does that quite well. So.
Okay. Right. Excellent. So, do you think we've educated people on what the different Bitcoins are, or anything else we should cover?
That's about it for me. Do you have any
About
more
it for
questions?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, when the SV split happened, what percentage of your developer community and community overall sort of went in each direction? Just high level sort of.
I think that's hard to measure. At the time, it felt like it was 50-50. As the dust has kind of settled, I don't think that's the case.
Right.
You end up seeing that most of the developers working on Bitcoin SV are somehow or another on the payroll of N-Chain or affiliated companies.
Right.
A lot of companies that have investment from them or directly work from them.
Yeah.
I think Bitcoin Cash retains a much more grassroots and organic developer community.
Okay. Right.
You see random people popping up all the time saying, hey, look at this thing I made for Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah. I mean, SV's clearly got a very solid marketing effort going on.
They're very good at that.
Yeah, there's some pretty slick material coming out. Nowhere near as good as the material from hardforking.com, though.
Or coinspice.io.
Oh, sort of little.
Yovito.co.
Oh, yeah, don't worry, we'll get you. Yeah, so I guess, you know, I got to ask, have you met Craig Wright?
Several times, yeah.
Okay, thoughts? Is he Satoshi? Is he part of that additional core team? What are your thoughts on that one? I'm dying to talk to the guy.
On a personal level, I think Craig is a hoot.
Yeah.
I've drank with him. I love hanging out with him. He's a really fun guy. On a Satoshi level, one, I hate playing the game. Is he Satoshi? Isn't he? Who is Satoshi?
Yeah. Wow, sorry, I had to ask.
Yeah, sure. It's a fair question. I think that's ultimately irrelevant. What if he is Satoshi? Should that have any bearing on his current actions? I don't think so.
The government might care.
Well, that's why we're better off not knowing who Satoshi is.
Okay.
I think it's best Satoshi is left as sort of a legendary figure.
Rick, have you got a few questions? Would you like to jump on front of camera?
No thanks.
No, thanks. You sure? Okay.
Well, I was considering laying my claim to being Satoshi, but
We are all
that wouldn't
Satoshi,
surprise me. Yeah, we'll reveal who's behind the camera soon. We are all Satoshi. Yeah. So what's next for you personally?
Just building up coinspice.io. We're a pretty new media company. We've been around about 6 months.
Yep.
We do video content. We have a podcast, news articles.
Okay.
Very vibrant community.
Cool. All right.
Just
Well,
focusing on building that.
check these guys out, and yeah, lovely to meet you, mate.
Very nice to meet you
Sure,
as well.
we'll be seeing plenty of each other in this space.
Yeah.
Cool. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.